Okay, calling to order the Joint Committee on Ways and Means and Judiciary. Today we're hear from the Judiciary, who will present their biennium budget, followed by the Department of the Attorney General. So good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So I'm not sure who's here behind me, so I'm going to go through the introduction anyway. Good morning, or good afternoon, Chair De La Cruz, Vice Chair Keith Agaran, and WAM committee members, Chair Rhodes, Vice Chair Keo Ho'okalole, and Senate Judiciary Committee members. I am Tom Mick, head of the Judiciary Policy and Planning Department. With me today is the Administrative Director of the Courts, Rod Miley, while the Deputy Director, Brandon Kimura, and other key judiciary personnel are attending virtually by Zoom. Thank you for the opportunity to present an overview of the Judiciary's biennium budget and its related requests, mission, functions, personnel situation, and operations. As I think most of you are aware, the Judiciary's primary mission is to adjudicate disputes brought before the courts and administer justice impartially, efficiently, and in an accessible manner in accordance with the law. To accomplish this, the Judiciary has two major program categories: court operations and support services. Court operations include both our regular courts, such as courts of appeal and circuit, family, and district courts on each major island, and our specialty courts, such as drug courts, girls' court, veterans' court, community outreach court, and mental health court. All these courts serve to safeguard the rights and interests of persons and other litigants by assuring an equitable and expeditious judicial process, whether it be for the general public or a specific type of individual or case, such as for mental health or veterans. The support services category includes the Office of Administrative and Deputy Administrative Director and 5 administrative departments: Human Resources, Planning, Financial Services, Intergovernmental and Community Relations, and Information Technology and Systems. These programs enable court operations to be conducted judiciary-wide and enhance the effectiveness and efficiency of the judicial system by providing the various courts with administrative services, such as budgetary and fiscal control, as well as overall personnel and technological support and guidance. Also attached to the Judiciary is the Judicial Selection Commission, which reviews and evaluates applications for full-time judgeships, submits nominees to the appointing authority, and determines whether justices and judges shall be retained. Relative to the Judiciary's staffing and budget for fiscal year 21, the Judiciary has 2,036 authorized general fund FTE positions, of which 295 were vacant as of November 30th, 2020. However, of these 295, 179 that were vacant on March 30th, 2020 were defunded by the legislature during last year's session, which leaves just 116 current vacancies. Relative to our budget, our initial budget base of $172 million for fiscal year 21 was legislatively reduced by $14.7 million, which represented $11 million for the defunding of the March 30 vacant positions, plus another $3.7 million. This $3.7 million related to a proposed fiscal year 2020 legislative $12.7 million reduction that we could not meet in its entirety. So this shortage amount of $3.7 million, after discussions with the legislature, was added to our fiscal year 21 reduction. This reduction had a significant impact as it occurred at the same time the Judiciary was trying to absorb an almost $1.5 million increase in security and technology-related costs. Specifically, when comparing fiscal year 21 budget and planned expenditures with fiscal year 20, Major budget reductions judiciary-wide included, for example, about $4 million for POS contracts, $626,000 for jury costs, $615,000 for overtime and other special pay, $452,000 for travel, $746,000 for guardian ad litem attorney fees, $866,000 for utilities, and $563,000 for repair and maintenance. Nevertheless, through all these budgetary and fiscal challenges, as well as the challenge to just ordinary court operations presented by the COVID-19 pandemic, the judiciary, after an initial disruption, has adapted, resumed most all of its operations, and continues to provide its vital service to the public and to the community. This might take the form of limited court appearances or in-person meetings, use of video conferencing or remote hearings, or any combination thereof, depending on each island's rules, community needs and support, and the number of people being served by a specialty program or court. Our annual report, which I show here, and which will soon be published, discusses many specific programs in the judiciary and the COVID-19 response by each of these programs. As for our budget request, after considering all the uncertainties, challenges, and the economic and budget deficit situation the state is facing, the judiciary is not submitting any biennium budget request for addition to its general fund budget base. The only change from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 22 is additions caused by separate collective bargaining bills passed last legislative session. However, CIP, or capital improvement program requirements, remain a major item of concern for the judiciary as its facilities age and deteriorate. Further, funding CIP projects with bond funds can help stimulate the economy and help the state recover from the current economic situation. Specifically, the judiciary is requesting CIP funds totaling $22 million in fiscal year 22 and $18.6 billion in fiscal year 23 to address certain critical needs. If you go to the end of your briefing material package, you'll see a PowerPoint presentation regarding our individual CIP requests. And I'll give you a minute to get there. Okay, the first page is a priority summary of the 9 projects for which we are requesting funding. The next page shows our highest priority item. That is the replacement of the fire alarm systems and elevators at Kahamano Hawai'i and First Circuit. These items are more than 30 years old, are tied into each other, and are malfunctioning with greater frequency. The fire alarm systems do not comply with fire alarm codes or ADA requirements and must be replaced before replacing the obsolete elevators for which it is almost impossible to get replacement parts. Next, we go to our lump sum request of $3 million, which is to allow us the flexibility to address both emerging and continuing needs. These pictures on this page show an example of the type of situations that occur where CIP funds may be needed to address the issue. Our third request is for funding to replace corroded, non-compliant storm drain, fire suppression, sewer, and air conditioning piping systems in the parking structure at Ho'opili Hali in the Second Circuit. One of the pictures here shows a car that caught on fire was parked under a sprinkler system that failed to go off. Next is funding for our third and last phase of the ongoing project to replace the roof and repair related leaks and damages at our courthouse on Kauai. Our number 5 priority request is to replace a seriously degraded roof and upgrade roof drainage at our downtown Kapa'aiwa building, a building that is on the National Historic Building Register. Our next request is to upgrade or replace all existing air conditioning equipment, ductwork, piping, sensors, actuators, and controls in Ali Alani Hali, a difficult project at best because of the age and the historic nature of this building, which houses the Supreme Court. The current very old system has led to numerous trouble calls and air quality and excessive humidity issues in certain locations. Number 7 is for a new chiller and photovoltaic system for the detention home in Kapolei to reduce utility costs and ensure it remains operational during any extended power loss. Next is our request for funding in fiscal year 2023 to address certain critical security issues and vulnerabilities in the parking structure, entry area, and perimeter for Ho'opili Hali, a Second Circuit building built in the 1980s when security was not such a focal point as it is now for all courthouses. Last is a request for funding to improve security at the First Circuit Court building by renovating its Sheriff Patrol Station. That concludes my presentation. Again, thank you for the opportunity to provide you with a briefing today regarding our biennium budget, and we're available to answer any questions you may have.
Members, any questions?
Chair, this is Carl Rhodes. I have a couple if this is a good time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Mick. Thank you for, I don't know if thank you is the right word. I'm glad that you recognize the current fiscal state of the state. Appreciate you not making any general fund requests because there isn't any money, and the sooner we all accept that, the better off we are, I think. I did have a couple of questions about the CIP priorities. Ka'ahumanu Hale fire alarm system elevator upgrade. How long has the judiciary been asking for money on that particular on those two projects?
About 10 years. So.
About 10 years at least, you think?
About 10 years, yeah, at least 10 years. It could be 11, but at least 10.
Do you happen to know how, I mean, Circuit Court on Oahu has to be one of your busiest courtrooms, one of your busiest courthouses. Do you know, is it the busiest circuit court? Is it the busiest circuit court?
Oh, I would think so by far, most definitely, yes.
Okay. And then the other question, so the one for the Ronald T.Y. Moon Courthouse, the new chiller, is that, I guess I'm just getting old. It just feels like that building is brand new. Is this something that you currently have, that they currently have as a chiller there, or is this something that's reached the end of its useful life and needs to be replaced?
No, this would be a pony chiller just for the detention home, so in case the electricity was gone for whatever reason, it would kick in to help keep the detention home chilled and powered, but it'd be just for the detention home.
So it's a new item. It's not a replacement.
It's a new item. Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Members, further questions? Senator Inouye.
If the committee don't ask the question first, but to follow up on Chair Rhodes' comments with regards to CIP, your Kauai renovations, replacement of the roof, and that's the Oahu Kauai Courthouse for 3.9. That building is not that old. It was built before the Hilo courthouse, and I think we built that in the early 2000.
Correct.
Why are we having roof problems? Reason I ask is that one of the contractors that was hired, he comes in from Hilo, and I was on the flight with him because he was on his way to work on Kauai. And he says for some reason they're doing work that they don't need to. So he says, we're going there, but we don't see any problems with the roof, so why are we doing the work? He says, but that's okay, we got jobs, I guess. But it was really interesting that he made that comment. And again, now having said that, if the building is not more than what, 15 years old, isn't the contractor still liable for
No.
leaks like that?
Yeah, no.
If there is a problem?
Yeah, the contract, we went through that with DAGS and company back when we first started this, noticing this project, or noticing this problem 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And DAGS said, no, it was after the warranty period. Okay, so we tried that route, we really did. But the situation on Kauai, I do have some information here about it, okay? Part of the problem was the way they built it. They didn't build any falls or any way you could go up and inspect the roof. So nobody noticed that there were problems up there. They never had anything, nobody was looking at it. So the original roofing is steel-based and badly corroded. New roofing will be aluminum and will not be subject to deterioration. Roof access and fall protection were not included in the original design or construction. Construction inspection was limited and construction defects were missed. There was a portion of the side, the roof level that was not even completed. There's not construction defects, and underdriven fasteners too close to edges, splices too far apart contributed to premature failures in storm and harsh environment conditions. It's right next to the airport, so that was another problem. Not only storm, but you get the fumes from the jet fuel as well. Let's see. With no roof access, repairs were done only for obvious damages such as portions of the roof blowing off. Capable contractors had to be brought from Oahu to do this. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that happened.
When was it built again?
I'm not sure the date, I'd say.
Because, well, it was in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep, sorry.
Well,
Yeah.
The confusing part is what Senator is just saying. So you're saying the courtroom is not more than 20 years old. So what kind of contractor, because usually any roofing company usually gives a 30-year roofing, so the thing was flawed from the beginning. So who is the inspectors on the job?
Well,
You know what I mean?
this all goes through DAGS, so I can't.
Because you're saying that part of the roof wasn't done and then it's by steel and it's getting rotten. I mean, wow, that's big, that's a big negligence, and now it's gonna be negligence to the people and the taxpayers. So it's kinda like somebody got off with a good one, you know what I mean? So hopefully when they get the guys who are doing them now, it's not the same contractors,
No,
right?
I agree with you 100%. Senator. Yeah. I
Thank
think
you.
it was just not the best job in the world. I'll leave it at that.
Any other questions?
Chair, if no one else has a question, I do have one more on the, on your table 12, the Criminal Justice Research Institute.
Yes.
So it appears that you have filled the director's job for that institute? And
That
there's
is-
three
that is-
other- Okay.
That is
There's
correct.
three others that have not been, 3 other positions that have not been filled?
That is correct. The position was just filled within the last 2 months? Within the last 2 months, so we didn't want to go fill any other positions because we wanted to leave it to the new director.
Okay, but currently, you're planning to go ahead and recruit and,
Yeah, I think so. I think
Fill
we're
those
planning,
positions.
yeah, eventually, once she gets her feet on the ground and gets oriented, yes.
okay. Okay, thanks, Chair.
Okay. Senator Kidani?
Thank you, Chair. I noticed in the general funds, there was a request for 7.1 million for collective bargaining. What unit is that?
I think that represents all the units that, where the legislature passed bills last year. I can get that information if you need it by unit, but that represents all the units.
Including justices, judges?
No, but justices and judges come under, the Commission on Salaries, so they're not included in that. That would have to be a separate request from us, and we did not include a separate request this year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, we're going to recess until the Attorney General gets here. Thank you. Recess.
Thank you.
Okay, calling the info briefing back to order. So now we'll hear from the Attorney General who will present her biennium budget. So, good afternoon.
Great, thank you very much, Chair, all the members of the committees. I appreciate the opportunity to appear here today in front of all of you and to talk a little bit about what we've done here with our budget. You're all very familiar with the kinds of things we've been doing. As you can see in the various submissions that we've made, during the COVID pandemic, we've continued to do our main services through our Child Support Enforcement Agency. $135 million was brought in this year going to families in need. $44 million was administered through our criminal justice programs. We have the division heads for these different divisions available here today to testify. So Lynette Lau, who is head of our Child Support Enforcement Agency, is here. We've got Julie Abato, who is head of our criminal justice programs, is also available to testify. We've got our Hawaii Criminal Justice Data Center supervising attorney, who is Chris Young, available, and also our Chief of Investigations, Dan Hanagami. And then, of course, I'm joined here today with our Administrative Services Manager, David Moore. We have also been before members of this committee during the summer to work on various matters related to the pandemic. Our EP team, which we set up at the beginning of this pandemic, has worked to frame many of the legal issues that have confronted us, and we've set up not only in conjunction with other divisions, the Safe Travels programs, but many of the corollary aspects like the COVID exemption hotline. We've processed in our department 200,000 exemption requests in the last few months. And we've also assisted with the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations matters, working on the UI matters, not only with bodies, but handling various issues that have arisen in conjunction with federal partners and other state partners, so that we could work on issues ranging from fraud to just assisting with the process more generally. We have also continued to work closely with Department of Health. Quarantine orders, which were something we didn't do very many of prior to this pandemic. We have done quite a few of them related to the need to contain persons who are COVID positive and not comporting with the orders of the Department of Health to comply in different ways. We have also continued to work through this complex litigation fraud and compliance unit that we had talked about last session and even in the prior time, which is something we're really proud about. It is an opportunity for us at the executive level of our department to look carefully at the types of cases we bring in, to decide if they are criminal in nature, civil in nature, administrative in nature, to bring forth a good amount of investigative audit resources to the issue, and then to figure out how it works throughout our department and the best way for these matters to be funneled. They have stood up quite a response for us in the pandemic as well, working on everything from the Young Brothers analysis, again, the UI work that we've been doing, our CARES Act stand-up, assisting the state with understanding the different requirements for CARES Act. That has been spearheaded by our Chief Integrity Advisor, who's part of that compliance unit. And it's been a very good thing for us to have that level of flexibility at the executive office. Also, they've gotten involved in major litigation, like our Dannenberg case, our Kalima case, our OHA litigation, and also they've been helping us with our emergency proclamation litigation. We've been defending the governor's proclamation in various courts at the state and the federal level, and we've been successful on all those fronts, in part for a lot of the reasons that you're already aware of, because we've really thought through some of these constitutional issues and the implications of these issues. The other aspect about the Complex Litigation Fraud and Compliance Unit that's of note is that it is also working on our False Claims Act work and bringing in cases that are going to result in recoveries for the state in the form of penalties and different monetary recoveries. So that's going to be an important thing that we do as part of our affirmative litigation. As you're aware, we've also brought lawsuits regarding opioids, Juul, Facebook. We just were at trial over the Plavix case. So we've been busy, even as this pandemic has required that all of us do extra and above what our normal duties require of us. So that's a general overview of what we have been up to, and sort of reflects what's in our budget requests and what we have looked at with respect to the types of cuts and modifications that we've made. So if there's anything in particular, especially regarding some of the actual budget matters that you'd like to talk about, happy to open it up and entertain any questions.
Members, any questions?
I have a couple. This is Carl Rhodes. So on table 4, right in the middle, Hawaii Corrections System Oversight Commission. So the initial department request was 4 positions, both years, 369 and 250. And then the budget and the BNF recommendation would appear to be 0. Is that correct?
Yes.
So then the governor's decision was 10,000 but no positions?
Yeah, the 10,000 was to cover any minor travel expenses and supplies maybe.
So who would you have somebody who's working on this, on the commission part-time then?
What
We-
table? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
If
we
there's
would,
no- if there's- if there's
in-house,
no one-
managing it in-house, yes. We would just assign that to one of the legal assistants.
I see. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Senator Inouye?
Yes. Thank you. During our DAGS hearings, and Kurt talked about relocations and movements of certain buildings that house and on leases as well. And he did say, I think, that out of your building, is someone or part of a division is moving out to another location?
That's correct, Senator. It's our tax and charities unit is going to be moving out of the Milam building.
To where are they moving to, and how many employees are there?
Kalani Moko, and I believe it's around 16.
So who was in that particular building in Kalani Moku? Did someone move out and became available?
Yeah, DL, I think it was DLIR occupying it while they were remodeling the first floor. And they just moved out, I think, this month.
Oh, okay, yeah, this seems like there's some movements, and we're wondering, and with the consolidations and movements out of leased areas. Now, so what's happening with your building then for that particular vacancy, that, with them leaving?
That's an outside lease space.
Ah.
So we put a cut into the budget for some savings for that.
I see.
It was partially funded with special funds and partially general funds.
Oh, okay, so you'll be clear with that particular space then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Kim? Oh, wait, Senator Kanuha?
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. I know at least since I've been here, we've spoken about this in the past couple of years, but the Career Criminal and Victim Witness Program, was this originally supposed to be funded or, from the state and then taken over by the counties for them to fund this program?
Thank you, Senator. My understanding of the program, as I've looked at the legislation, is that it was to provide a legislative priority to these types of crimes, which makes sense. Career offender crimes are really significant crimes and they deserve some attention. And it looked as though the Attorney General's office was to work on developing training and supporting these programs, but the prosecutions happen at the county level. And it has varied over the course of different sessions, is my understanding. Certain counties don't make any specific requests for money. Some counties have used it to fund positions to carry out this legislative mandate. So in this year, we as the state, with the kind of fiscal constraints that we're experiencing, which the counties are not, at least on the personnel side, feeling in the way that we are, this year the decision was made for us not to just do a funnel or a pass-through of the money to fund positions per se, but I am looking at the statutory language and looking at the mandate and how our office, and in particular our Criminal Justice Division, might be able to look within what it was that program was intended to do to support the counties in the event it's not necessarily just passing money through.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Senator Kim?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Happy New Year. When you talked about the fraud unit, does the fraud also include UI?
Yes,
You
yes,
folks are in
we
charge
were
of
involved
that.
with that, Senator. Yep, the fraud that many people were subject to, the letters that were received. And the good part about that is many of the people who were part of this unit had previously worked for the federal government, so they had connections. This was a multi-state issue, as you know, and they were involved in not just looking at the complaints themselves, but also working with the task force to decide how best to handle them.
So are we making any progress in that area with the UI fraud?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was mostly being handled on the federal level, which is often a one-way train. We give them the information, and I don't know the status of the investigation. I know that what we have been able to do is when people are identified as victims, the advice we give is to immediately look at your own affairs, make sure your credit is frozen and credit cards are frozen and things like that. But in terms of where that investigation is going, I don't know the answer.
How much do we anticipate we have lost because of all the fraud that went on? Do you have that number?
That is a good question. I don't know the answer. I would assume Director Estacio probably would. I'd be happy to find out and get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. You're requesting 40K for emergency appropriation in the general funds for overtime expenses?
Actually,
For
we're no
investigation.
longer doing that. We're going to proceed through a lifting of restriction instead of going through.
I'm sorry?
We're not going to be making that request any further. I think what we can do is look at some of our restricted funds and try to get that money through a different channel.
Couldn't you use COVID funds? Or you don't have any COVID funds?
I think that was our request for COVID funds, but go ahead,
It's the
David.
general
Freeman.
funds here.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, that was a request for COVID funds before they passed the extension. So I know BNF is reconsidering and relooking at what funds they're getting now. And we've asked for that 40,000 to be taken out of there.
Okay, thank you. What's the status on your 80-90 hires?
We're down to about 14 in total.
You've been at around that number for a while.
Last session, I think we were about 20.
20?
4 years ago, we were in the 40s.
Okay, so is 14, I mean, again, 80-90 hires is supposed to be for emergencies, and yet,
Correct.
these are perennial positions that keep getting renewed at 80-90 hires, so.
Correct. I understand the concern, and we're really working hard to, correct that. Made significant progress in the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, but we're still not in compliance with what the 80-90 hire is intended to be. So,
Correct.
and that's been years, so, I mean, while it's come down, it's certainly still not in line with what 80-90 hires is supposed to be.
Yeah, ideally, we would like it to be 0.
Okay, thank you. Finally, how many of your staff is actually handling procurement protests?
Procurement protests.
I mean, do you have anybody assigned to that, or is that a general assignment? Or, I mean, one of the concerns that, like the airports have and other departments have, is that they're just, the procurement problem. And that's one thing, but then there's the protest. And so I know we've had bills to limit, protests and what the number is for protests. But the other area is how long we're taking to review these protests and act upon this protest.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that some of this stuff goes to the AG's office to be reviewed. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the admin division. And,
That's admin, and probably our land trans probably deals
Stella
with some of
Chan-
it too. So I can look into that and find, and specifically the timing is, or the amount of resource that we put towards those. Is that
Yeah,
the question?
because there's a protest that have been going on since June of this last year. Okay, and as of today, or I shouldn't say as of today, because I got a update on this Monday, I believe. But as of before Monday, the AG was still looking at it.
What is the contract, just so I know what it is?
It's
What
the
it-
airport, I want to say conveyor system, but it's one of the airport
conveyor.
contracts that is needed to get done. And my understanding that there's a protest and that it's been with your office since June or July.
Okay.
And it doesn't seem like that complicated. And yes, it may end up in the courts, but why would we add on 6 months to the whole process? And so, one of my concerns have been when people say it's the procurement process that's making everything, cost more. Part of that process is your review. And if you're going to take 6 months to review, and so as of Monday, they said that, the AGs, they're going to let it go, meaning tell them no and let them file the go to court if they need be. And I said, when is that letter going to come out? They said, oh, we don't know, we'll let you know. I said, well, let me know, because are they going to take another month before this letter goes out?
Well,
you see what I'm saying?
I
It's
do.
the process and the length of time that's being added on by the administration or your office is causing the cost of doing business even greater.
So I will look into that specific instance. I get calls about that all the time, especially with Department of Health and things, and usually when I look into it, it's not just sitting on our desk. It's usually there's been some conversation back and forth with the agency, and there's been some aspect to it, but I'm happy to look into that one. And anytime there's something that's causing that level of concern, including from June, feel free to reach out to me, because when I have pursued these, it turns out it hasn't just been sitting on the desk. It's been a part of a back and forth, and there's been further processing, and I can certainly look into what the actual circumstances are here on that.
I looked into this, and it doesn't seem that complicated, so I cannot imagine why it would be 6 months worth of going back and forth. At some point, the trigger has to be pulled, whether you allow the protest or you don't allow the protest, the trigger has to be pulled so that the process can take place, because now if they go to court, this thing is going to drag on for another 6 months or so. And you just added 6 months to it, when if you could have dealt with it in a month. So I'm looking at introducing a measure to say you only have X amount of time to review this or something to move it on, because it's not acceptable when it's adding costs to doing business.
Sure,
And
so
we can't afford that.
I'll drill down on the facts, figure out what is actually going on in this case, and then I will
Thank
get back to you
'Cause
directly.
in the meantime, the airports can't move on. They need it.
Right.
They need this project. We've been doing the airport modernization for I don't know how long now, and every
Right.
time there's this kind of protest or something, I mean, we can't stop the protest, but we certainly can manage the amount of time we take to facilitate the protest.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? If not, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, I do have one more. Sorry about that. Couldn't get my thing unmuted quickly. Back to the same topic, Table 4, the Hawaii Correction System Oversight Commission. So the budget for fiscal 20 was roughly 159,000, is that correct?
I believe that's in the right neighborhood, yes.
And then it went up to about 330,000 in fiscal.
Yeah, because the
21.
first year was half year.
Okay. So we're going from roughly 330,000 to $10,000 this year.
Correct.
That's my understanding. And I know you're aware, Senator, that this is attached to our department, and so we're responsible for the funds, but in terms of the decisions about how those funds get made, it's an attached.
What was the commission's request?
The commission.
I think we,
What was the question?
what was the commission request? I think we matched their request. I think their request,
This is the request.
this is their request, so.
You just passed through the request then?
Right,
Correct.
exactly. It's just attached to us, so it just comes through us for that purpose. But then as Dave said, if there is no funding, then oftentimes we'll help with some of the assisting on the administrative level.
Okay. As the, I forget what the title of the person who's supposed to run the commission, the coordinator, I guess it's called. Is that, do you know if they've hired a coordinator yet?
I don't, Senator, no.
You don't know, or they haven't?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, last question, Senator Moriwaki.
Aloha, Claire. Just one quick question. I noticed that you have two positions for an deputy AG and an investigator for the compliance with registration for charitable organizations. Is that a big problem? I'm just wondering, since
Yes.
what kind of problems you're dealing with.
Yes, it has a lot to do with compliance. These, of course, are entities that are getting a significant tax benefit. There are also charitable concerns about the utilization of the money and if it's a charity, the beneficiaries. So it is a really important part of our tax and charities unit to have the ability to investigate, to ensure compliance, and to ensure that these different entities, and there are many of them in our state, are operating pursuant to the law, and when they're not, that they are appropriately investigated.
And are there penalties like fines that get put into a special fund that could be used for,
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
That's my understanding, yes. Yes,
so
that
this
is a special fund.
once the
yes.
special unit gets organized and starts getting fines, then it could be put into a special fund that can actually pay for some of the staffing
That's correct.
to investigate. Is that,
That's correct.
Yes.
Yes.
okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Senator Ke'oho Kalole has a question.
Oh, no, sorry, defer to the chair. Thank you.
You don't have a question?
No, he doesn't.
You deferred.
Okay. Okay, any last questions before I actually gavel out again?
No.
Thank you.